Kevin D. Williamson is always a popular guest on this show. It gets a tremendous response. He is a national correspondent at the Dispatch. He spent 15 years writing for and editing, helping to edit the National Review. He's the author of a provocatively titled best-selling book called Big White Ghetto, Dead Broke, Stone Cold Stupid, and High on Rage in the Dank Woolly Wilds of the Real America. His most recent piece is Not What He Seems, the incantation of a stunted man. Now, who exactly is that stunted man, and why do you give him that distinction?
Well, it's not going to surprise anyone terribly, I think, if I admit that I'm writing about President Trump on that particular observation. It is a theme that I have visited, unfortunately, had opportunity to visit many times over the past many years. You know, Trump is this weird character in that he seems to really believe that if you pretend to be something hard enough, you will kind of become that thing. And he's in this current weird spree of naming things after himself. He really wants a Nobel Peace Prize, which he's probably not going to get, but he named the U.S. Institute for Peace after himself, which is now the Donald Trump Institute for Peace, which is uh, a weird thing to do while you're conducting a campaign of mass murder in the Caribbean. But okay, sure, whatever. And that's going to hurt his Peace Prize chances, I think, a little bit. The whole, mass murder thing. But he's naming
Well,
the
don't
Kennedy.
forget the Kennedy Center.
He's naming the Kennedy Center after himself, which is kind of great too. John Kennedy wrote a famous book called Profiles in Courage. Donald Trump should have written a book called Profiles in Cowardice because he is a draft dodging, injury faking guy. So it's kind of like Trump was a fairly middling businessman. He didn't make a great return for himself in the real estate business. A lot of analysts estimated that he would have been better off just parking his money in an index fund when he inherited it and never doing anything else for the rest of his life, just playing golf. He would have been wealthier than he was after his real estate business. But he played the successful businessman on television on this game show for many years and gave people the impression that he was his thing. So he spends his life kind of pretending to be things that he's not. Or like he had this weird thing, he had his imaginary friend, John Barron, who is his youngest son is named after. And I got a phone call, I'm pretty sure, from John Barron one time. I'm trying to remember the exact details of it. But John Barron was Trump's imaginary press secretary. And he would call up the New York Post and places like that and talk to them about women Trump was dating, that he
People
wasn't.
magazine, I know he called John Barron.
Yeah, one of them, he was claiming to be involved with Carla Bruni, I think, at one point, and she actually felt the need to make a public statement saying that this was not actually the case. I think she was already married at that point. And he's just a weird dude who does stuff like that, and I don't really quite get it. There's a line from Cicero that I quote from time to time, which I won't inflict the Latin on everyone, but it means be rather than seem to be. And I think that's the state motto, maybe of Nebraska or North Carolina or South Carolina. But it's a good piece of advice to be the thing that you would like to be perceived to be. And it's more important to actually be something than to be perceived to be that thing. But Trump really has spent his life standing that on its head and thinking that it's more important to appear to be something than actually be that thing, which explains the point I was getting around to, which is this strange, goofy, very disconnected speech on the economy he gave, where he does this stuff talking about it's the greatest economy ever, and I inherited the worst economy ever. And no one who's not mentally damaged believes this stuff. Everyone knows it's not true. It's not a terrible economy right now. It's not great. It's kind of modest GDP growth, unfortunately, persistently high inflation. Some other things we'd like to get sorted out. It's not the worst economy ever. It's not the best economy ever. Like a lot of things associated with Donald Trump, it's kind of middling. It's not super impressive. It's a little bit disappointing, but it's not the end of the world. But he's just incapable of even talking that way. So everything is always, the greatest this. It's like nothing anyone has ever seen before. And it can be something you literally saw the day before. And you'll say it's like nothing.
Well, okay, but you say in your column, and I think you're right, that there are lines that you can cross that even sycophants, that even your most devoted and obsequious kinds of followers, devotees, will
Yeah,
say, this is too far. This is too much. What
yeah.
just happened to
This
illustrate that
was actually
process?
that was a different column actually, but that was about his response after the death of Rob Reiner, who was apparently murdered by his son along with his wife. This truly horrifying thing. And Donald Trump, being this weird, messed up, profoundly psychologically unusual guy, takes to social media and starts to talk about how this is probably because he hates Donald Trump so much. And it just, that's what happens to people who hate Donald Trump. They get murdered by their children. Really crazy stuff to say. And a few Republicans, kind of stood up on their hind legs and said, hey, maybe this is a bit much. Maybe we shouldn't be talking this way about someone who was just murdered by his son. And I looked at that and I had two different thoughts. I thought, well, okay, that's great. I'm glad that you are somehow discovering a sense of decency at this late hour. But 2024, you guys were all in behind a guy who wasn't just rude on social media, who had recently tried to overthrow the government of the United States. All you Republicans figured out a way to get good with that. And to say, well, let's let bygones be bygones. He did try to overthrow the government and suborn election fraud and do a whole bunch of other stuff like that. But now we're going to get bent out of shape because he's being ungracious to a dead guy on social media, a dead man who happened to be a very famous person.
And very
That's a
popular person.
that's a weird place to draw the line. You know, I can live with people being pretty rude on social media. I've been pretty rude on social media myself over the years. It doesn't always bring out the best in people. I get that. So far, I haven't been involved in a plot to overthrow the government of the United States. And I think I'm probably pretty safely going to say I'm not ever going to be involved in one of those.
Okay, don't you think, Kevin, that part of this drawing the line right now has to do with the upcoming election next year that's coming up in less than a year from now? And some people are realizing, hey, maybe it wouldn't be so useful for me as a politician to run for reelection representing all of Trump's foibles.
Yeah, I think there's some of that. I also think that the Trump thing is kind of over. I mean, he's still president and he's still going to be president for a while, so he can still get a lot of attention and do a lot of damage. But I think that the people who are really the heart and soul of that movement, to the extent that it has a heart or a soul, beyond him, are already looking to what the next thing is going to be. There are already people positioning themselves for what happens to the MAGA thing. I hate to even use the word MAGA because it's just silly abbreviation. But what happens to this right wing populist clique after Trump? And I think that a lot of the air has kind of gone out of his movement. You can tell with people like Marjorie Taylor Greene kind of moving on to new things. You can tell with other, all these Republican resignations and decisions not to run for reelection in Congress and all that stuff. I think there's a sense of exhaustion that this thing has run its course. And I also think that a lot of people are coming around to my point of view on this, which is that there's probably not really a second act for Trumpism per se, that it's a unique sui generis phenomenon, having more to do with Trump's position in American life as a celebrity than it has to do with any sort of political ideology or political movement. And this is why I think my friends on the left shouldn't laugh about it too much, because I think Matthew McConaughey could be nominated to be run as president for the Democratic Party. I think all sorts of crazy people could be, because celebrity is a very, very powerful thing in American life, and it's much more powerful than political affiliation is for most people.
Okay,
And McConaughey's
there
not the
been
craziest person who could be nominated.
there's been some people who have said that what could happen with Trump would be the Democrats win a landslide, they take over the House, they take over the Senate, and then they immediately start another impeachment drive. Do you think that's
Yeah.
possible?
Well, I don't think they'll probably take over the Senate, but if they do win the House and they do win the Senate, they absolutely should impeach him and remove him from office and bar him from ever standing for anything again. And he's probably not the only one. Hegseth should probably be impeached, if not charged with crimes,
How about
and other
Robert
people in the
Kennedy?
administration. Yes, he should definitely be removed as well. There's a long list. I don't think you could charge Kennedy with anything, but yes, he should definitely be impeached and removed from office.
Yeah, again, you can charge him for assault on the institutions of public health in the United States. Kevin Williamson, part of the bracing public health in our country. Appreciate your commentary. Some of your commentaries are actually posted at our website at MichaelMedved.com, giving a bracing perspective to this greatest nation on God's green earth.